Welcome. Today, we're going to share a story that's, well, it's deeply disturbing, but also incredibly powerful. We're going back to South Africa, 1994, a nation in transition facing its own immense challenges. And amidst all that, one woman's experience became this national symbol of both horror and unbelievable resilience. Her name was Alison Botha. She's just a young woman living a pretty ordinary, happy life in Port Elizabeth the coastal city, beautiful beaches. But one night, one absolutely terrifying night changed everything. It pushed her right to the edge of death, but somehow she found this unimaginable courage to fight back. And this isn't just about the crime itself, horrific as it was. It's really a story about survival, about the fight for justice, and ultimately about finding inspiration in the darkest places. Just a heads up, the details are graphic, quite intense, but Alison's strength, her spirit, that's what truly shines through. So let's get into her story. So to really understand her strength, let's look at Alison's life before everything changed. She was born September 22, 1967 in Port Elizabeth. Friends described her as full of smiles, but also with a real fighting spirit. Her parents divorced when she was about 10, so she grew up with her mother, other relatives too, always seen as bright, cheerful, really well-loved, went to collegiate high school for girls. And she wasn't just a student, she was actually student president, really involved in things. After high school, she did a gap year, traveled a bit, discovered she had this passion for, caring for people, getting involved socially. By 23, she found her path as an insurance broker. Apparently, she was really good at it, loved her work. So at 27, the age she was when this happened, she had her own apartment, was really close with her mom, enjoyed the simple things, just seemed very content, not comparing herself, just happy in her own skin. A really well-adjusted, joyful life, which makes what happened next even more jarring. Let's go to that night, December 18, 1994. It was a chilly evening for December in Port Elizabeth. Alison had been out partying with friends, first at the beach, then back at her place. Sometime after midnight, she did the responsible thing, drove her friends home, dropped the last one off. She gets back to her apartment complex, parks her car in her usual spot, probably just thinking about getting inside, right? But then, that moment, she turns to grab her laundry bag from the back seat. Just a normal, everyday action. And she hears it. A click. Clack, sound of her car door opening, and there's a man standing there, prompts it twice, holding a knife, a silver knife, gleaming, and he just says, "Move to the passenger seat or you die." Du Toit gets in. He actually introduces himself, but uses a fake name, Clinton. Says he just wants to borrow the car for an hour. Alison, terrified, obviously, just stays silent and does what he says.
And that initial interaction, that sort of deceptive calm he used.
Yeah.
It's chillingly effective, isn't it? It's a known tactic. Criminals use it to control the situation, to prevent immediate panic or resistance.
Right. Make the victim think maybe it's not as bad as it seems.
Exactly. It bypasses that immediate fight or flight, buys them time, creates this false sense that maybe they can talk their way out of it.
But that illusion just shattered completely, didn't it? Because Du Toit then drives off, but not far. He drives to pick up someone else, his accomplice, the Kruger. Now, there are two men in the car. And Alison said she knew right then she was in terrible danger. That feeling that she wouldn't see her family again, wouldn't see her apartment, just overwhelming dread. They drove south, took her to this really secluded area, desolate, poorly lit. It was near the Nelmapius Matriculants University campus, but at night, apparently, just empty. The perfect place for what they had planned. And when they stopped, they didn't mince words. They told her straight out, "We want to have sex with you, and if you resist, we will make you experience hell on earth." Just brutal honesty about their intentions.
And it's crucial to understand, this wasn't some random impulsive act for them. Both Franz du Toit and Theuns Kruger, they had records. They had histories of similar, extremely brutal sexual crimes. This is a pattern.
A terrifying pattern, and they followed through. Alison was raped repeatedly by both men. They beat her, choked her almost to the point of unconsciousness, and after they were done, the sheer malice of it, they decided she had to die. Why? Because she fought back. Because she dared to try and survive. That earlier promise about returning the car, just a lie. Then Du Toit took out the knife again. He stabbed her 37 times in her abdomen, her genital area. And the report specifically mentioned he targeted her uterus, her ovaries, like he was trying to destroy any possibility of future life for her. Believing she must be dying or dead already, they then attacked her neck. 17 slashes across her throat. Alison actually described hearing it. Hearing her flesh being cut, feeling the cold air hit the wounds, the blood just pouring out, her body going numb from the sheer agony. They must have been certain she couldn't survive. They just drove off, left her there for dead in the cold. So she's alone, bleeding out, face down in the dirt, barely alive. But even then, she decides to leave a message. She uses her own blood, dips her finger in it and writes Clinton, the fake name Du Toit gave on the ground, trying to identify them. And then another message. Love you, Mom. And apparently it was that thought, thinking of her mother, her loved ones, that sparked something. Like, if I'm still breathing, maybe there's a chance. What happens next is just beyond comprehension. Her fight to get help, first she has to push herself up off the ground, but when she lifts her head, she feels it wobble. Her neck was cut so badly, her head was barely attached. She literally has to hold her head steady with one hand. Then she tries to stand, and she feels something shifting inside her abdomen. Her intestines are actually coming out of the stab wounds. So now she's using her other hand to push her organs back in and hold them there. Just try to picture that. Holding your head up with one hand, holding your insides with the other, trying to walk towards a road she can barely even see in the distance. Determined. She said she kept collapsing, but she just kept getting back up, willing herself forward, step by agonizing step. Finally, somehow, she reaches the edge of the road, and she collapses again, just lying there, hoping someone finds her. And then a miracle, truly. A veterinary student, Tina Eilert. He was driving home, but taking a different route than usual. He spots her. He stops immediately, gives her first aid, whatever he could do, and calls for an ambulance. She's rushed to the hospital. Surgeons work for hours, multiple operations. The head surgeon, who had 16 years of experience, said later he'd never seen anyone survive injuries like that, ever. Her will to live, it just defied all medical logic. She survived. And the news, it just exploded across South Africa. This story of horrific brutality, but also this miraculous survival. It gripped the whole nation. People were horrified, but also amazed. It became this huge focal point.
Yeah, and you have to remember the context. Crime, including violent crime, was very high in South Africa then, in that post-apartheid transition. But investigations could be slow, resources stretched. Alison's case, though, because of her survival and the sheer brutality, it created this intense public pressure. People demanded justice fast. It wasn't just another crime statistic. It felt different.
Absolutely. And Alison herself, as soon as she possibly could, she helped the police. Her memory was incredibly clear. She gave detailed descriptions. Police artists made sketches. They checked criminal records, cross-referenced, and boom. They identified Frans du Toit and Theuns Kruger and the attackers. They were so sure she was dead, they hadn't even gone far. They actually ditched her stolen car not too far from where they'd left her. So with Alison's positive identification, the car as evidence, police picked them up within days. It was incredibly fast. Plus, the DNA evidence from Alison's body was a direct match to both du Toit and Kruger. Overwhelming proof. Faced with all that, they both confessed. And Alison, she found the strength to testify in court. She had to relive that nightmare over and over again, but she was determined. She said she wanted to make sure they did never, ever hurt another woman. Her testimony was absolutely crucial. So in 1995, justice was served. Both men were found guilty on 8 counts: kidnapping, rape, attempted murder, assault. They got life sentences. A huge relief for Alison and really for the whole country. But Alison didn't just stop there. He refused to let this define her, refused to be just a victim. Those scars, physical and emotional, were immense, but she chose to turn her experience into something else. She became this incredibly powerful, inspirational speaker, traveled the world, 35 countries, I think, and she would deliberately show her neck scar, not hiding it. She presented it as a symbol of survival, of strength, which was huge, challenging that stigma, that pressure for victims to stay silent, hidden.
That was genuinely groundbreaking at the time. We have to remember, back then, many victims of sexual violence felt immense pressure to hide what happened, even their identity. Alison's openness, her willingness to stand up and say, "This happened to me and I survived," it started a really vital conversation, not just in South Africa, but globally. It forced people to confront the reality and the courage it takes not just to survive, but to speak out. Showing that scar was such a powerful act of reclaiming her story.
Absolutely. And she received so many awards for her courage. People of the Year in South Africa, the Rotarian Paul Harris Award, the citation said, "Courage Beyond Convention." Femina magazine called her the brave woman. And then perhaps the most incredible against all odds moment. Remember how they'd specifically targeted her reproductive organs? Well, in 2003, and then again later, Alison gave birth to 2 healthy sons. She saw it as the ultimate victory, proof that they failed to destroy her future, her ability to create life. Her story is also captured in her book, I Have Life. And there's a really moving documentary from 2016 just called Alison. She shares her own perspective, her emotions. She really wanted her story to give hope to others facing challenges. But just when it seemed like she might have found some kind of peace, some closure, another fight began. In 2023, news broke that Frans du Toit and Theuns Kruger, after 28 years behind bars, were eligible for parole review. It was based on South African law regarding sentences from that era. For Alison, who was 56 by then, this was devastating. It brought everything back: the fear, the anxiety, The idea that the men who did that to her could actually walk free, it was a terror she hadn't anticipated having to face again.
Yeah, understanding that parole system is key here. For sentences imposed before October 2004, there's this provision for automatic parole review after a certain period, often 25 years for life sentence. It doesn't mean automatic release at all, but it mandates the parole board has to consider their case. So for victims like Alison, it meant the fight wasn't truly over. The legal process itself could reignite the trauma.
And the public reaction was immediate. Huge outcry. Groups like Women for Change started campaigns, rallied support for Alison. People argued quite strongly that these men had shown zero remorse, that they were still dangerous. Alison herself posted on Facebook about her fear, the burden this places on victims. And all that stress, it took a physical toll. In 2024, Alison actually suffered an aneurysm, needed surgery. But even dealing with that, her resolve didn't waver. She kept fighting to keep them locked up. Then, in late March 2025, the decision came down. The Department of Justice and Correctional Services denied parole for both Dutoit and Kruger. The official statement emphasized community safety, especially for women and children, as a priority in their review. They would remain in prison for life. Just immense relief for Alison, for her supporters. Proof that her voice, her fight, had mattered. She posted her thanks, said she'd face her health recovery with that same spirit. So Alison's journey, it's almost impossible to comprehend the pain, but the message that emerges is so incredibly powerful. She has this philosophy she shares. She says, basically, whatever you encounter, live life to the fullest. Obstacles, trauma, they're like scars that need repair. But the amazing thing about repairing those scars, no matter how hard it is, if you're determined, if you put your whole heart into it, there's always a wonderful way out. She encourages everyone to stay strong, keep moving forward, find joy in that process of repairing and restoring yourself. Live life for yourself and for others.
It's such a profound perspective, isn't it? Seeing scars not just as reminders of pain, which they are, of course, but also, more importantly perhaps, as evidence of healing, evidence of growth. Symbols of that incredible human ability to overcome, to mend, and even thrive. Alison's life embodies that choice. She chose to see her scars as proof of strength, not just damage. And maybe that's the thought to leave with. How can we all learn to view our own scars, our own repairs, not as signs of being broken, but as maps of our own resilience?
Alison Botha's story is undeniably harrowing, brutal, but it truly transforms into this awe-inspiring saga of resilience, of courage, of finding light in the absolute darkest of nightmares. Her journey shows us that even after the unimaginable, the human spirit can find the strength not just to survive, but to become a source of hope for countless others. Her fight for justice, her advocacy, her personal journey, it's all testament to that strength. We really hope her message might inspire you, maybe help you find your own courage when you face challenges in life. If you found this story compelling, if you appreciate these kinds of deep dives into challenging subjects, into human endurance, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Doc. Your support really does help us continue bringing you these stories, exploring the darkness, but also celebrating the light that overcomes it. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Stay safe out there and take care.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye.